Sexualization and Body Images in Video Games by Live Average Gamer. Now, I've heard this is a very fair take on this subject all around, addressing both sides of the argument. So I'm very interested to see this. Let's start.
This was always going to come up at some point, and I've always wrestled with how to approach the subject of sexualization in video games because I know I don't have the popular opinion here. Like, I know I'm not going to get an award for saying what I'm about to say. I think deep down everyone knows it. Boobs are great. I still think back to the first time.
Well, I definitely can't argue with you there. Yes, boobs are great. You already got a like from me, Live Average Gamer. That's good. That's good.
I saw Guinevere in Dark Souls. I mean, holy moly, praise the suns. This character kind of stands out in Dark Souls, and there's a reason for it. During the DesignWorks interview for Dark Souls, the director, Hidetaki Miyazaki, said this, quote, "Talking of glamour, her breasts have nothing to do with me. They happened without my knowledge. It's all the artist's fault. I think I mentioned earlier, but I always seek a certain refinement in all my designs." Really? Yes. But the artist had such a happy look on his face, I didn't have the heart to stop him. End quote. There's something about the candid...
That's kind of... I'm gonna be real. That's hornily endearing in a way. Don't forget about Dr. Demi from Resident Evil The Village. I haven't played that game. I've only seen a summary of its story.
Nature of Miyazaki's response that makes it seem even more grin-inducing. On the other hand, there are people that don't share this point of view and find these developments disturbing, especially in the context of female characters. It's difficult for me to understand, but I'm going to try to do my best to relay what I have heard on the matter. Doesn't have to be Dark Souls, could be Nikkei Goddess of Victory, any of the good Mortal Kombats, Tomb Raider, Bayonetta, Dragon's Crown. I could
well, hold on.
To relay what I have heard on the matter. Doesn't have to be Dark Souls, could be Nikkei Goddess of Victory, any of the good Mortal Kombat.
Any of the good Mortal Kombats. Damn, that's shade thrown, but I kind of have issue with Mortal Kombat being a little less sexual lately, but it's not the end of the world to me. But what is the end of the world to me is when I found out that the developers who had been doing the gore for it suffered nightmares from all the research on gore they had to do. That is still messed up to me.
That's Tomb Raider, Bayonetta, Dragon's Crown, I could go on. Dead or Alive, The Witcher, Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Final Fantasy, Soul Calibur, Honkai Star Rail,
so much booba.
Red Alert,
so much booba.
Metal Gear series, Catherine, great game by the way. Blood Rain, Overwatch, I mean definitely on Reddit. GTA, Red Dead Redemption, and Duke Nukem. Let me know if I missed any. So anyways, my understanding is threefold. The first being that gamers feel misrepresented by the characters they play as, or even compare themselves to those characters and feel shame for not meeting the standard set by media. I mean, duh, you don't have cat ears.
Well, yeah, duh. I mean, I don't understand why people, try to compare themselves to, the body images that fiction can get away with. I mean, look, I'm a magical empress, but the reason my giant honkers don't weigh me down is because I have magic to enhance my strength. Otherwise, yeah, lugging around all this cake and tits would actually hurt my back.
Other is that the current state of gaming is nurturing males, in particular in the direction of misogyny, by holding women to unreasonable standards.
I highly disagree with that.
And then treating them as objects of sexualization or rewards.
Hi, Mr. Anime, by the way.
The third is that they just fail to be immersed in the game because it's plainly unrealistic to them. Now, I'm not perfect and it's not my intent to strawman people, but obviously I'm going to have my bias as any human being does. If you give me a well-reasoned comment or correction, I may even do a follow-up video, but you also have to remember that we don't have the time to dive into the nuance of every perspective.
I actually played a demo
within
of
the
this. It was
bucket
actually
of
pretty
for
good.
and against in every scenario. For example,
Oh, Code Vein? That's another game I need to stream myself. Cause when I first tried to stream it, I had a pretty weak PC and it lagged quite hard. What about women who like sexy female characters? Nothing wrong there.
some of you might be fine with Bayonetta because her sexuality is rationalized in a way that makes sense to you, but maybe you find the scantily clad Katana from Mortal Kombat 9 so unreasonably proportioned and clothed that the only possible reasoning is that men find it hot.
I mean, what was that? What was the name of that girl? Hey, Serto! Welcome, welcome. Thank you for the resub. The whole sexualization in video games, that even reached to movies. Like, let's look at that one super unrealistically thin but stacked lady from the Roger Rabbit movie. I mean, I don't think anyone, when that movie first came out, was comparing their body to her. If anything, if you look at how thin it's just like, shouldn't she fall over from no support? In fact, I would actually love to see someone make like how that would be in real life, where that Jessica Rabbit, or whatever her name is, just falls over because she has no back support.
I mean, it doesn't exactly take a soothsayer to put that one together, but...
Nah, Mr. Anime, he's just addressing both sides of the argument. You missed it at the very start, but he even addressed he likes booba.
We'll get to that. I first want to tackle physical representation, and I think that this one is generally expressed more so by females, and yeah, I kind of feel the same. I, as a male, struggle to relate to most male video game characters. Most guys that are gamers struggle with this as well.
I mostly focus on their personality.
This is going to take a while, but let me cook. I'm doing something here. This is me in my 20s, and then I did many years of gym, and finally I did my first fitness competition in 2018. This is me then. I don't look like this at the moment. The reality is that maintaining a low body fat physique,
you know, he got some cake back there though, at least.
don't look like this at the moment. The reality is that maintaining a low body fat physique is really hard work, especially if you're trying
it is
to
really
hold
hard
onto your
work. That's
muscle
why I
mass
use
and
magic
you aren't
to
using
cheat.
steroids. Now, even if I did jump on gear, there isn't any guarantee that I would blow.
Well, I mean, no, my body is the way it is naturally. I just use magic, so I don't have a back that hurts all the time.
Up. I mean, I'd get bigger and my jawline would widen, but the thing that most people don't know about steroids is exactly how prevalent it is. And it's not just bodybuilding. I
would
talk
never
to
take
people
steroids.
that didn't know that
I've
Arnold
heard too
Schwarzenegger
many-
was openly on
too many
gear,
scary
and everyone
story about
competing in
steroids.
Mr. Olympia when he was competing was also on gear. In reality, if you look like you belong on stage and you're very close to 90 kilograms as a man in the world of bodybuilding, then I have my doubts. Though I am being very loose here, there are some very average-looking steroid users that don't have the genetic talent or know-how to be exceedingly impressive, or...
Wait a sec. Hold on. This may be a really dumb question, but are steroids considered in any way good for you? I honestly thought steroids was pretty close to being illegal. That shows how far out of it I am.
they could seem unimpressive because, well, they've got quite a bit of fat on them. A lot of them are purposely trying to keep these things under wraps for obvious reasons. It's a topic that is surrounded by a lot of taboo and nonsense that gets in the way of clear consensus. Now, what makes this even more sinister is that our current day and age makes it very easy to take advantage of people that don't know this. There are tons of influencers and movie stars that have been on gear and then claim that they aren't, or even worse, they are selling fitness programs while claiming that their physique is obtainable. And
I swear, I've seen ads like these when I'm on certain websites. I mean, what?
yeah, a better physique is obtainable, but maybe not that particular one. Liv, where are you going with this? Okay, I'm getting there. The point is that the collective majority opinion on what a peak natural male looks like is unrealistic. It's just not on the cards for a lot of men. Not with...
You know, I just realized my ad breaks are set to like 1 minute 30 seconds. I thought I set them to be a little less short than that. Oh well. There's nothing I can do about that. If anyone wants to gift sub anyone here that isn't sub, be my guest.
Without drugs. This is Eugene Sandow, considered the father of bodybuilding, but...
The father of bodybuilding, huh? Never heard of him.
Also, he lived before steroids, so you can trust that he's 100% a real man. Now, you could make reasonable arguments that more people are in the gym now, so there's a greater genetic pool in the sport and therefore more impressive physiques. And you could reasonably say that sports science has improved.
Oh my gosh, you're actually playing Honkai Star Rail slowed down? That actually hurts my eyes. I'm so used to it always being fast.
Proved to make bodybuilding more efficient, and this is true. Something to consider, but I don't think it's astronomically different. To give you an idea, the winner of the WNBF Bodybuilding Federation, which is one of the few that does random drug tests, so, you know, you can still cheat, but it's better to be charitable, you know? Anyways, the...
I'm not exactly sure I understand what you're saying there, buddy.
Winner in 2023 is Bada Lakan, and he weighs in...
Bada Lakan, wow. Dang, his package is barely hidden there.
At 86 kilograms, or 190 pounds on stage. For reference, Arnold Schwarzenegger was 107 kilograms on stage, and Mr. Olympia of 2021, Big Ramy, is 140 kilograms on stage.
Do you ever wonder if, for these massive bodybuilders, if whatever they're wearing down below there, that looks so extremely tight. That kind of looks almost painful. Do you think it's painful? I think it's painful.
Broadly speaking, the biggest guy on gear is approaching double the muscle mass of the biggest natural bodybuilder. We need to talk about something else as well. The average body fat percentage of an optimal athlete is around 14% in males. Generally speaking, your abs start to really show at around 12%. This is the point where people will start to notice. But
hey, I'm sorry, I can't math.
Single-digit figures, around 4% at the most professional
I'm not
level.
into
Here is a barbarian
cakes.
from Dragon's Crown. This character is in single digits of body fat. I don't know of a single professional athlete that stays in single digits all year round because it's so incredibly difficult to maintain, and it's simply not
Avatar
beneficial.
or...
So let's talk
No,
about
that ain't
male
Avatar.
characters from a video game. I'm going to choose Soldier 76 from Overwatch. I mean, he's basically the Captain America of the universe, but he's also the
that's one way to
average-sized
describe
male
him.
body in the game. This works with Hanzo and Cassidy as well. Here's a side-by-side of Soldier 76 next to Frank Zane, 3-time Mr. Olympia. And yes, he was on gear, but he's also considered the father of aesthetics and competed directly with the likes of Arnold
really see a
Schwarzenegger.
comparison.
Now,
Is
obviously,
it just
there's
me?
going to be no perfect perspective here, and we're going to ignore the massive hands and forearms of Overwatch characters, but I measured out Frank Zane's shoulders, waist, and thigh, and then traced them over Soldier 76. What do you know? It's almost like the average Overwatch hero has a very similar frame and musculature to bodybuilders of the golden era. What's crazy to me is that Frank Zane was known for his narrow waist, and even though Frank Zane has the more flattering angle, he still doesn't have Soldier 76 beat. My point here is that the point of reference
I thought
for
he
many
said
artists
Soldier
when they go to
76
pencil
meat.
out these peak male physiques starts beyond what is naturally achievable for most men, especially men that are not spending substantial time pursuing these physiques. Now, for full disclosure, you can definitely find male characters that fit more realistic ideals. Ethan Winters from Resident Evil and Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series come to mind, but all these guys
they look
are
kind
classically
of, they
handsome.
look a
And I'm
little
gonna tell you
stronger than
something.
usual,
you can
but
change
still
your mass,
relatable.
you can get some abs, you can put on some muscle, but the face you got is the face you got, and I ain't got that face. Also, a lot of games that try to appeal to more Eastern standards don't really value muscularity as much as Western cultures, but rather
Yes!
slim, tall figures with more of a focus on aspects like face symmetry, eye size, and fair skin.
And I actually like that more. I absolutely adore the anime male physique shown here, where they clearly look strong, but they're not overly muscular. And it, like, really shows mainly in, like, their faces and such. Arataki Ito is a bit of an exception because he's clearly showing off his strong abs and such. Which, if Lane is here, I'm pretty sure you still want to sleep on those abs.
The takeaway is that there are tons of male video game characters that don't even have naturally or unnaturally achievable physiques. Most of them are nowhere near the average male, and what's scary is that the general population are largely incompetent in discerning this, whether it be from the perspective of a male or a female. In fact, there is no study on this. Literally no one talks about it. For the sake of fairness, what I'm talking about here is applicable to women as well.
Wait, there's... For how much people complain on this? Let's go back a bit. There's actually never been any type of study on this? Considering how many pointless things they make studies for, you'd think this would be one of them at some point.
One talks about it. For the sake of fairness, what I'm talking about here is applicable to women as well. For example, women retain a higher body fat percentage naturally, and they can't get as low as men without dying. But women generally have their abs show at a higher body fat percentage. Here is an example of a bikini pro. What's important to note is 1, her physique is very impressive. I believe she's a natural athlete, but there are no
she definitely
guarantees.
looked like an
what
athlete.
I can tell
She
you
definitely looked
is that
like
one thing
she
is
could
real.
kick a number of
Boobs
your
are
asses
mostly
out
fat,
there.
and you need to lose fat to show definition. You don't get to choose where fat comes off of your body.
Okay,
All
that
this to say
animation
that
in
if
this
you
game
drop
was
body
sick.
fat, for definition, as a woman, your boobs are going to diminish substantially. Compare this to Miss Olympia winner
Not mine.
Marlene Blanquisco, who appears to have not lost any mass in the ordeal. For those that can't do simple addition, breast implants are extremely prominent and sought after. And like steroids, by the way, a lot of bikini pros do use performance enhancers, but we're not getting into that now. But like steroids, it's more than you think. I mean, I sort of feel like people know in the back of their minds, they just prefer not to address it since, you know, it's harder to hide and they like it. Society approves. Anyways, if you're female, you can pick one. Boobs or definition. And if that's not acceptable, then you're going to have to go under the knife. Female video game characters seem to have it all without any of the compromises. And by the way, Zarya and Junker Queen are on gear. Sorry, not sorry. Women don't
what did
practice.
he
By
say
the way,
there?
Zarya and characters seem to have it all without any of the compromises. And by the way, Zarya and Junker Queen are on gear. Sorry, not sorry. Women don't produce enough testosterone to get that big without help. Oh. And then there's Abby from The Last of Us Part 2, who as far as I can tell is the only person in the apocalypse that has access to PEDs, a rigid training regime, and ample protein to sustain that otherworldly muscle mass. The primary regime is the only person in the apocalypse.
Oh, I will never, ever get tired of Abby's physique being called into question because, again, how do you end up looking like that in a zombie apocalypse? It's like, if you were able to exercise that much, wouldn't your grunting and such, wouldn't that alert the zombies or something? I have no interest in Nikkei.
Apocalypse that has access to PEDs, a rigid training regime, and ample protein to sustain that otherworldly muscle mass. The primary driver for muscle growth is free testosterone, and comparing the high end of testosterone in women versus the low end in men is 11.6%. Women have 11.6% of what men have in terms of potential for muscle growth if we're being charitable. Now don't
Really? Really now? I always thought it was, I always thought that women had a percentage a little higher than that.
get that number twisted. It's not 11% of muscle mass, but 11% of the hormone that is the driver for muscle growth. Yada yada yada, no one cares, Liv. Women that lift are kinda gross. This is also Maureen Black.
I would disagree with that, but I think he was just making a joke, so...
And Crisco, by the way. I think a lot of people make snap judgments about what people look like on stage. You train for years and years and you work toward a single season of being lean and then you fall back to a sustainable body fat percentage. I think one of the most harmful perceptions that females have adopted for themselves is that the pursuit of becoming physically stronger will make them unattractive. I cannot find a single scenario where it hasn't made a female more attractive and more capable outside of the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Like I said, these extremes are unsustainable, but it ties nicely into wrapping up this detour. Real life is full of bodies that are not sustainable or even achievable for the average person, male or female. Video games and other mediums take these unachievable shapes even further from our reach. But I do think that there is a fundamental difference between how different people see this. I kind of see it as the space between perfection and reality. Two lines that you can influence and draw close, but you never can align. My thought, and I think a lot of people share this, is that if you don't have a sample of perfection to aim for, you never draw close to it. That's why a lot of guys admire Arnold Schwarzenegger's achievements and try to emulate him, even if they know they can't do it without drugs. Even though they choose to stay natural, they still want that inspiration to look up to.
I mean, it's kind of like... It's kind of like you're watching Dragon Ball Z and watching Goku train on the way to Namek. You know your body would never be able to handle all the shit he's going through, like 100 times normal gravity, but you see the struggle and the results they have, and you're just like, man, that really influences me to want to work out.
Never be as muscular or as handsome or as skilled as the male characters I play as in video games. I can't be, but it's still beneficial to know that I could look more like that. I can become more handsome if I work at it, and I can be more skilled if I apply myself, and there's a fundamental good in having that carrot dangled if you see it for what it is. I think it's also fine to be inspired and just do nothing with it. Like, I can play God of War 3 and not go to the gym afterwards. I don't need to be Kratos light, but it's nice to dream for a moment. Now, on the other hand, maybe you're in the camp that sees these characters and people as these impossible standards that you need to meet to be approved of by society, and my first question is this: who told you that? You want to—
Thank you! Who told you that you need to look like these fictional characters that we can obviously never measure up to? You know, unless you're me and you're just gifted with this natural beauty. Oh, I just realized I still have my thing on. Let's actually get that off real quick. There we go. Now I'm more sexy.
I know my second question: why did you listen to them? What scares me the most—
those physics, hold on!
who told you that? You want to know my second question? Why did you listen to them? What scares me the most—
what game is this? I can almost see those nips. Almost.
Is that there are
this
some
also
that carry this
Nikke?
perspective like a backpack of bricks, and they want everyone else to stop and fill their backpacks
Good grief. I knew the fan service was crazy in Nikke, but she might get Passion Lip a run for her money.
with bricks too. And if you're wondering why people—
Also, she almost looks nude, but I'm pretty sure that's just skin tight
and I mean people very deliberately here, male, female, whatever. If you're wondering why people won't take on your perspective, it's because it's harmful to them. You're the one that is peddling a dangerous ideal. Video game characters are not an accurate reflection of us. Not in the physical sense. Not by a long shot. Instead, they are far more a reflection of an ideal of beauty meant to please, entertain, and provoke inspiration. They have never been
it's a good way to describe it.
Cross. You're not supposed to get to the point that you look like Lara Croft and then think to yourself, ah yes, I can finally be loved and accepted. But, and there is a but, female characters...
And it's a very...
Ah yes, I can finally be loved and accepted. But
it is a very big but. Wow.
And there is a but, female characters are more often sexualized than male characters. So I can't understand that if you're a female, maybe you don't feel comfortable with Kasumi's massive knockers knocking around on screen in skin-tight revealing clothing. You don't see the art. It's not pleasing. In fact, maybe it's just kind of gross to you, which again is difficult for me to grasp, but I'm trying here. You might also feel like female silhouettes aren't as varied as male silhouettes in video games, and I'd say that I'd broadly agree with that assessment. But if you'd ask me if it's more socially acceptable to alter the appearance of men for comedic value, I'd also agree. So we find ourselves at an impasse here. Majority-wise, males like sexualization of female video game characters a lot. Not always, and not in every scenario, but we like it a lot. I'm not going to lie. Females don't tend to like it as much, but sometimes they do. Let's address the elephant in the room. Are most video games marketed towards males? Yes. Even though the most current survey I can find in 2023 showed 46% of gamers in the US are female, I'd say at a glance that most games cater to male tastes. When I say that though, I don't mean it in the exclusive sense. For example, Call of Duty generally appeals more to males, but if you take a look on Twitch, you're going to see that there are tons of females playing the game. Anyways, a bit of lore here. During the 80s, video games moved from the electronics section of stores to the toy section, and because toys were separated into male and female, video game consoles were placed in the boys section. This is one theory
That's kind of funny
the
to me.
gender skew in marketing. Furthermore, only 3% of people working in video games were female in the 80s. I personally worked in the video game industry in
Only
2007
3%?
as a quality assurance tester for Orin Developments, the guys that made the RTS Dark Reign. Yeah, I know you don't remember. My experience
I don't even know what
was
that
that
is.
the video game industry is not highly paid and extremely volatile. And yeah, I know a QA tester is kind of bottom of the barrel, but I also know what the programmers were earning, and it wasn't great. I still remember sleeping under my desk and having to wait until midnight to test a build that had to be approved by the start of the next workday. The truth is that video games weren't born as this extremely lucrative endeavor. Sure, the industry is huge now, and I'd hope that the value of workers has gone up. But
Sounds like working for
is that
EA.
many people that got into careers in video games back in the day were passionate people that were largely going against the norm of the time. It was never cool to be into video games. There are even records of some game devs leaving their names off of the credits of their games as to not affect their day job. Hideo Kojima told his friends he worked in finance when he started working at Konami. It was often met with disapproval
Kojima's
from
always
family
been
and
a
friends
bit
and
of
seen
a
as frivolous.
exception
The
to
view would
many
change over
things.
time, but my point
Nobody
is
can
that
figure
it
that
wasn't
guy
a
out.
desirable career for anyone that didn't really want it.
He does have
Am
a
I
lot of
saying
base
that
takes,
women
though.
wouldn't have what it takes to work in video games back in the day? No, but I think that there was a high level of risk, male or female, and I think even as a guy, I'm not confident that I would want to take up a high-risk, low-paying career for personal fulfillment if I had other options, or if I could find that personal fulfillment somewhere else. I'm not using this as a catch-all for why females didn't really engage with the video game industry. I just wanted to illustrate the mindset of the time and give it a frame. I think it's pretty common to look at the numbers on the page and say, oh, women aren't doing this thing as much as men. That's bad. Maybe it could have been better. Maybe it should have been better. But while we're balancing our genders,
And now
in
the
every
male
career, we should
ass
probably
with the
help out
butt.
sewage disposal. As you can see, gaming is doing way better than the sewage sector, with 24% of developers being female in 2019 2019 in comparison to only
Yeah, there's a lot
4.5
more
of
actual
sewage disposal
diversity
workers
now.
being female in 2023. Moving on, the next question is, why is it that only 24% of game developers are female? Why isn't it closer to 50% like the stat for gamers? Well, I think it's because they don't want to be. A lot of people online would
Yeah,
like to
that's
assert that we have
probably a
nurtured
good
women away
reason.
from video games, that the hobby has been gatekept by males, and that careers have been denied, and therefore there aren't more video games targeted at females. I do think there has been gatekeeping. Sure, I mean, I know Blizzard has been in the news for its frat boy culture. Even when Blizzard hired Jen O'Neill as co-leader of the company, she soon stepped down from the role because she
deserve
realized that she
everything
was
that's
there
coming
as a
to you.
token gesture for solving the current lawsuits. You can also throw Riot and Ubisoft in there too. I'm not here to argue that racism and sexism doesn't exist and that it doesn't need to be rooted out where it's found, but there is something that the gatekeeping narrative doesn't account for. See this game? This is Bright Memory Infinite. It's a first-person shooter with awesome action.
Oh yeah, my
combat
friend
set in
actually
China. It
gifted
only
me
runs
that.
for 2
I need
hours,
to
but what's
play that at
remarkable
some
about
point.
it is that it is made by a solo male developer. You don't know this game? Okay, have you heard of Minecraft? Developed in 2009 by a solo male developer, Marcus Persson. These are only two, but Stardew Valley, Cave Story, Turbo Overkill, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Choo Choo Charles, Mechs vs. Kaijus, Getting Over It. The list goes on. The one thing that all these games have in common is that they are created by solo male developers. There's no gatekeeping in solo development. I mean, it would be pretty difficult to create a sexist or racist environment in a company where you are the CEO and the only employee. So then where are the games made by female solo developers? Well, they do exist, but they are few and far between. The Ranch of Rivershine is one. I found two others, but one was for mobile only and the other was still in development.
Yeah, I
wish
guess
them
I
the
don't-
best of luck. The point is that when
I guess I don't hear too much about, solo female-made video games.
our general population is left to their own devices, the people that really want to make video games and have the drive to make them successful are males. Again, I don't want to throw shade at the few female solo developers here. Can women do it? Absolutely.
Yeah,
But most of
absolutely they
them
can.
don't seem to want to do it enough to make a dent in the comparison. Researching this video took me about 5 minutes to find the games made by male solo devs. By comparison, it took me over an hour of combing the internet to find the one female solo dev game in r/gamer girls. Now, I don't really have any theories here. I'm not a psychologist. I'm certainly not tinfoil hat enough to assert that women have been brainwashed into thinking that solo dev games are only for men. So I have nothing to offer here other than I think women are less attracted to video game development than men, even on their own terms.
That could be a
Some
possibility.
people will only be happy once the number of female devs is 50% or greater in their favor because they believe that finally video games will heal. They will finally reflect the quote-unquote right ideals. It will finally be your turn, right? I'm not so sure about that. You might recall this is just a detour. We're here to talk about why games tend to cater more toward male tastes when it comes to sexualization. So yeah, more men making games is definitely a part of it, but, and this is an important but,
Coffin of Andy and Lily was one until she got harassed. Wait, was that one made by a solo female developer?
men are simply easier to please. I mean, it's literally as easy as removing some of the armor or showing more skin. Going back to Bright Memory Infinite, look how
Yes.
easy it is to get money from us. If this didn't work, it wouldn't be here.
Sex
Not
sells!
convinced? What was
What
the
can we
biggest
say?
marketing point for
Sex
Resident Evil
sells!
Village? I'll give you 2 hints. This is a horror game. Lady Dimitrescu is barely in the game. Also, I thought that people were tripping when they found her really attractive, but you know, then she picked me up and strung me up, and it was like my world changed. I was so confused on whether I should run away or spend forever in her chambers. Moving
I'm pretty sure many people felt that way. Oh yeah, this advertisement.
on, why was Megan Fox dressed like this in the Diablo 4 marketing? Every GTA game has a female in suggestive poses on the cover art from Vice City onwards. Here's some DLC for Dead or Alive 6.
Don't buy the DLC for Dead or Alive 6. It's way too expensive.
So yeah, sex sells, but it's way easier to sell sex to males. literally edit some art assets, change some poses, get a voice actor to make a suggestive line or two, and it will pay dividends. Sometimes this can backfire, but I think it largely works if you don't go too far with it. And yeah, it's not necessary, but it's free money if the shoe fits, or if you can make it fit. Comparatively, how do you attract females to a product using sex? Like, this is a genuine question. Do you add genitals and give them physics so they move around under the clothes of male characters? Do you...
Baldur's Gate! Sorry, I just... You know, I wonder if Baldur's Gate won because you can mate with basically everything.
You take characters' shirts off? Do you make them wear turtleneck sweaters? If it was for my wife, I'd dress the character like they're from a K-drama, and I'd make them do chores around the house without being asked. But I'd leave one dirty plate on the table, and then when the girl goes to pick it up, he quickly grabs her hand and pulls her in, and piano music starts to swell. He smiles and looks into her eyes for exactly 3.5
What
seconds
fanfiction am I listening
saying,
to?
I'll take care of it. Spend more money online, please. Like, I know this would be interesting to my wife, but what about my neighbor? What about my female work colleagues? How many women would this work for? And how long do these interactions need to go for? How much money would I have to spend to put this in a video game that has nothing to do with romantic dramas? For example, Dead or Alive is a fighting game, two people beating each other up, but you can make it sexual for males very easily. What is the cost of doing the same for females, and how much will it eat into the core design and game pacing? Question. I'd actually love to see it done. Imagine a Boys Over Flowers fighting game. So yeah, my point is that if I was thinking about game development in terms of cost of both money and time, I think it's just far easier to use sex to sell to males and try to strike a balance where it doesn't hurt. I mean, there's a chance that if I make it hypersexual, I can get even more money, even if I get less sales, thanks to DLC and whale culture. I think that at the end of the day, women's tastes are far more, let's say, complex and individually specific. I mean, they are totally specific, but I think that they are more specific than it is for the average male. And hey, that's not a bad thing, but it's an expensive, high-risk decision that makes it unattractive for most businesses that are trying to make a video game. This sounds like a lot of opinion, but here's where I'm coming from. In 2013, a study was carried out where they showed 4 wristwatch advertisements to both women and men. These advertisements had various levels of sexual content and prices attached to the wristwatches. To summarize, women found the ads with sexualization distasteful, but were slightly more accepting if the price of the watch was higher. Men's reactions were more accepting of sexual content, and the price of the watch had no bearing on their reaction. I'm gonna quote this part here as it relates to what we're talking about. To quote, "In order to appeal to women, marketers using sexual images in their ads should therefore display sex in the broader context of committed relationship, rather than promoting recreational sex," according to authors of the study.
I'm guessing recreational sex means just showing them actually boinking.
They link the findings back to the sexual economics psychology theory, which infers men see sex as an end in itself, while women link sex to a relationship commitment. The ad...
Ow! Hi, Toka! Women link sex to a relationship commitment. I can definitely see that.
Could, for example, position the product itself as a signal of commitment, such as a romantic gift from the man to a woman, although there was no improvement in attitude if the gift was offered by a woman to a man, or show the idea of intimacy or a relationship prior to any sexual image being shown, end quote. Now, I said that most businesses don't want to dabble in trying to use sexualization to sell video games to females, but I never said it doesn't exist. Dante from Devil May Cry 3 might be the best example of an attempt to sexualize a male character in a way that is more appealing.
I can kinda see that. I mean, I guess Dante from Devil May Cry 3, I guess he does have a little less clothing on him, but he also looks so badass that I don't really care.
To females. Also, there is a whole video game genre. Otome, or maiden games, are video games that usually take the format of a visual novel where you are trying to romance one or more male characters. These mostly play out...
So it's basically a male dating sim.
in the same way most romances play out in written form. I think a lot of people will not strictly call these video games, but hey, that's for you to decide on an individual level. While the male characters in these games are not usually sexualized, they do exist for the sole purpose of romance for women. This is as close as we get to men as rewards. I'll caveat here to say that RPG games that allow you to make your own character and allow you to create relationships and romances tend to be the best middle ground. A good recent example of this may be Baldur's Gate 3, but there are many others. The key ingredient is that the more relationship building there is...
I'm still bitter towards Baldur's Gate 3, and everyone knows why. It's because of the community around it and how, all the sexualization that they hate suddenly looked completely aside as long as you can boink a bear. It's so dumb. There's this one meme that's just like, your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.
The more likely it is to appeal to females in a sexual manner. Anyways, we've established that more males are in the game development industry than females, and I think I've established my point that it's easier to target men's wallets with sexualization. I think this is
all you
enough
have
to
to do is
explain
just
why
flash,
there are more
flash some
female
booty
characters,
and
but we
titty.
haven't yet talked about concern number 2. The concern that this sexualization nurtures men toward misogyny and incentivizes men to hold women to an unreasonable standard as...
No. Flat out before he says anything, just know. The only people that would say something as outlandish as that are guys that already are not mentally 100% there. If they are that far gone, then you should not be dating that guy.
Sexual objects. At this point, we need to take a step back because there is a difference between sexualization and sexual objectification, and we should probably talk about women as rewards. An often quoted example of a female video game character that is sexualized but not objectified is Bayonetta. Even though Bayonetta is full of innuendo, sass, and, well, female nudity, she isn't considered as an objectified character. For starters, the designer Marie Shimazaki
because she's
is a
having
female.
a blast
Actually,
and
kind of a
doing whatever
stupid
the
point
frick
now
she
that I think
wants.
about it. Moving on, the argument is that Bayonetta's sexuality as a character is intrinsic to her competent personality and explained to a satisfactory level by the lore of the game. For example, Bayonetta's outfit is actually her hair, and all scenes where she is naked, she is using her hair to summon a demon, and her hair is literally the mask of the demon. Further arguments are that her sexual displays aren't for the benefit of any male characters in the game, and that her sexuality is self-serving, powerful, and somewhat mysterious. By contrast, let's look at Rappy from Nikkei Goddess of Victory. This goes for all the Nikkei characters in-game. All of them are female. So we can see Rappy sort of has a military uniform and some guns, so you can surmise she's a soldier, but the stockings and the skirt that reveals her peach every time she turns around have no context to the story of Nikkei or Rappy's personality. In fact, her attire is totally at odds with her straight-laced personality and affinity for order. This would be a case where a video game character would be considered sexually objectified. She is presented the way she is, not because of the story, setting, her personality, or character, but because her sexuality is a reward for the player. She is an object to be enjoyed. As you earn or buy currency in Nikkei, you then use that currency to have the chance to own one of these sexy characters. In Nikkei, you are their commander. All of the Nikkei like you and display some level of romantic interest in you. They basically adore you. These characters are the reward for playing the game. Therefore, women as rewards. The idea is that video games teach males through gameplay to see women as objects because there are women as objects in video games and there are women as rewards in video games. These males will then go out and emulate this objectification and reward expectancy on real women. You know, misogyny. In 2022, a meta-analysis was conducted on 18 studies. This meta-analysis was titled, "Does Sexualization in Video Games Cause Harm in Players? A Meta-Analytic Examination." Meta-analysis basically compiles and compares multiple studies in search for correlating data to draw a wider insight on an issue. Here is the abstract extract of the study, to quote, "Whether video games with sexualized content do or do not relate to mental health and body image problems in players and or sexualization and hostility towards women is an issue of broad public interest. However, evidence from empirical studies has generally been mixed. To examine this issue, we explored the degree to which sexualization in games was related to both well-being, body dissatisfaction, and sexism, misogyny among players in two separate meta-analyses. Results revealed that sexualization in games was neither related to well-being, body dissatisfaction, or sexism, misogyny. Better design studies and those that showed less evidence for researcher expectancy effects tended to find less evidence for effects.
So
as appears commonly in other realms of media effects, the evidence is weak that sexualized games influence player attitudes and behavior." End quote. What's interesting here is not only does sexualization not have a measurable effect on body image or sexism, but it actually exposes that we've been lied to. If you didn't catch it, studies that showed less evidence for expectancy effects tended to find less evidence for effects. This is scientist for studies that had an agenda made up evidence for their agenda. Or if you like, my personal twist, if the research came out of movements like body positivity or feminism, they were bullshit. I have some thoughts on this.
I like that. So basically the only studies that showed it was linked to it were people that clearly had a biased agenda and wasn't just focusing on the facts. Which I can 100% believe. The only way that guys would see women as rewards after playing video games, again, it's people who are already a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in the head.
One being that people that think that Bayonetta is not a sexually objectified character are leaving out a major variable, and that is you as the player. Ultimately, the sexuality of Bayonetta is for the player, male or female, to be enjoyed and admired. The mental gymnastics people go through to characterize it as wholesome in comparison to other forms of sexualization is baffling. All these people are really doing is bullshitting themselves because the idea that a female designer could sexualize a character in a way that is sexually objectifying is incongruent with their belief system that relies on the idea that all women are equally repulsed and afraid of how men view women in video games. Oh, you're a female designer? Well, I guess it's empowering now. The God of War 3 sex minigame with Aphrodite was also designed by females. You know, the one that
Wait, that was actually designed by females? That infamous scene was designed by females? I didn't even know that.
The woman in the scene where they beg you to pleasure them and then praise and reward you for your outstanding skill. Is this one empowering now, or were the women that made it confused, brainwashed, or evil? I have so many questions. But let's get back to Bayonetta. Don't get me wrong, I can tell the difference. Like, yes, it's all explained. It's her character, yada yada yada, but I don't care. I can still undress her like a Barbie doll. You see what I'm getting at here? The other is that all video game characters are ultimately objects. These are not real people.
Bayonetta's
you can't go up to Tifa
action
and tell
combat
her that
is
you had
something
dirty
else.
thoughts about her cleavage. Cammy doesn't know that I lost the match because I was distracted by her ass. Even if I scream it at the top of my lungs. This is so obvious it hurts. Most people know that video games are a work of fiction and that there is a distinct difference between what happens in a video game and the social expectations of real life. How many studies are there that prove that you can shoot everyone in the street in GTA and turn off your PC and walk an old lady across the road without having a single murderous thought? Does it not then stand to reason that you can sexually objectify a fictional character and then not project that fantasy into your day-to-day life? Doesn't it then click that you can sexually objectify a character in a work of fiction without it turning to sexual arousal and then acting on it? These are easy questions to answer, but I don't think anyone was truly listening, which I find pathetic. I think the great tragedy here isn't that males making video games are creating misogynists, but that there are a loud minority of people that don't understand how the average male even perceives sexuality, which is kind of funny because it's really simple, but they still manage to miss the part where we're generally not animals. Kind of sexist now that you think about it. Now, all this does
Yeah,
nothing to
it
address
is
that
kinda
a great deal of
sexist from
females
the-
feel put
from
off
that
by cheap
other side,
sexualization
isn't
in video
it?
games. This is understandable, but we can refer back to the wristwatch study for that. This is going to address concern number 3, that being that sexualization is distracting and breaks immersion. In fact, I can give an example of when I found the sexualization
Now
of
that
a
one
female
I can
character
see
in a
a
video
little
game
bit of an
a little
argument
weird.
for.
I recently did a review on Red Alert 2, which is a great game. They
Wait
had
a sec,
Carrie
did I
that's
just
a little
hear-
weird.
I
recently
thought I
did
saw
a review on Red Alert 2.
Did she say honkai in the text
Of
here?
a female character in a video game a little weird. I recently did a review on
Oh, Hanoka. I misread. I thought they referenced honkai in something.
Red Alert 2, which is a great game. They had Carrie Werer acting as Tanya, who is supposed to basically be the military version of Lara Croft. Her in-game voice lines are pretty gung-ho and, well, she sounds like a 90s action hero. In the acted scenes, though, she was just annoyed the whole time. Not action hero annoyed, like Karen annoyed. That was confusing enough, but what was really off-putting to me was when she suddenly fancies you at the end of the game and wants to go on a date. In the scene, she suddenly reveals her sexy black dress beneath her coat. Now, this isn't upsetting to me, like, I don't really care, but because of the contrived romance and the split personalities, she definitely came across as a weak and unconvincing character to me. Again, I'm not bothered by it, and I think that there are a lot of females that really...
That's the thing some people don't get, is that when it comes to, like, this whole reward thing, we're not gonna be attracted to the character that hard unless we enjoy their personality already. Even if they might be insane. I mean, let's look at Kiara and Bibi from Fate. They're, I would not want to piss them off, but I'd still submit to them in a heartbeat.
Really don't care about it either, but I do feel like it would have improved the game if they paid more attention to her character and didn't muddy it by shoehorning surprise romance. I'd go a step further. It would have made more sense if Tanya had a sex scene with a random soldier. Think Private Dizzy from Starship Troopers, and we're getting close to what I believe players would expect Tanya to be like. But honestly, I could have just done with something more simple.
Is that a movie? I haven't heard of that.
Or something. I don't know. I don't drink beer, but it still fits better. Anyways, scenarios like this are more prevalent in the eyes of females. I'm often going to gloss over the scenarios where the boob jiggle physics doesn't make sense, or the moments when the female
those jiggle physics
like
really caught my
because
attention.
Ultimately, it's pleasing to me that they do that. So what is someone to do here where they feel like they're the minority? Where they feel like they would like a video game if it wasn't for that one thing? If you could just flip a switch and make the sexualization more nuanced or more in line with your interests? Well, I'll tell you how to piss off everyone and look like a clown. Start advocating that developers retcon and purge their current IPs and fan bases. This is one of the most insane...
Oh, you mean like so much of Twitter is doing constantly all the time? Trying to ruin characters by, let's make them more realistic. No, keep them fictionalized. If I wanted reality, I'd go outside. Do I look like the type of person to go outside? Short answer, no. I like my fiction to be over-exaggerated.
Things I've seen in our modern era, and I think a lot of it is built on the false narrative that video games breed sexism. But let's move on because there's smarter options. The smarter option is to advocate for new games and IPs you want to see. This does still get backlash at times from real misogynists, because again, they do exist and there are misogynists that play video games. Now, while this is smarter, I don't think it quite works, and once again, I'm going to make an appeal to common sense here. If 46% of gamers are female in the US, and we can extrapolate that to the entire Western audience, and let's assume that they reach some sort of consensus on how they want games to change,
Walsh.
then those games would already exist to fill the demand. This leads me to believe one of two things, and it's likely a mixture of them. The first is that only Omega-level nerds even talk about these issues, and the broad population of gamers just consume games and don't care about the quality of the content or the future projection of the hobby.
What is this game?
There
it looks
is
good.
no consensus, and there aren't enough female gamers that care enough about it to want the change. This is the simple explanation. The second is that maybe there aren't as many female gamers as we think there are playing games as a hobby. Think about this. You can make money by playing video games, or at least there's a chance to make money by playing video games by streaming over on sites like Twitch. How many of you work a job you don't want to work, but the pay is good?
I totally can't relate to that. Oh, hi, Genshin.
Or it enables you to live a lifestyle you enjoy. So then is it not possible that there are a percentage of both males and females that earn a living playing video games online but are not interested in the landscape of gaming at all? In fact, maybe they never want things to change because their popularity is tied to a specific game. Now, out of males and females, and
that
considering what we've just learned about the tastes of males, which sex do you think is more likely to be able to leverage playing video games as a business without caring that much about video games? For a case study, let's consider Amaranth, who is
Oh boy, we're going in this rabbit hole.
the top female streamer on Twitch. Now, to be fair, she doesn't usually play video games, but she did play quite a bit of Diablo 4 while the game was relevant. However, we can surmise that Amaranth doesn't really love video games, and she has gone on record stating that her true passion is
Yeah, basically what you just said, Cerno. I can't say that, obviously.
animal rescue. Here's her words in an interview in 2021. To quote, "My passion at the end of the day is animals, and I want to do an animal rescue using my platforms. But right now, we're just saving money, milking it while it's good."
Well, she's definitely milking it, alright. She's got those milkers.
End quote. Now there's another layer to this. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it. Amaranth's main business, or a large source of her business, comes from selling her porn content online in
Pretty
the form
much.
of OnlyFans. It's against terms of service to have adult content linked on Twitch, but it's common practice for streamers like Amaranth to link to a site that
Gotta
contains
love how
links
they get
that go
away with
directly
it.
to their adult content. And obviously it's no surprise that her paid OnlyFans link is the top link. In essence, there are many female streamers that use Twitch and the gaming community as a street corner from which they can peddle pornography. Now, I cannot speak on behalf of Amaranth, but if you were to ask her if she played a lot of Diablo 4, she would probably say yes. If you asked her if she played Diablo 4 on stream because she loves gaming, I'm not sure what answer you'd get, but I suspect that the honest answer is that she enjoys the money she is receiving.
Okay, seriously. What is this game? Because it looks good. Rather see Shootin' Doji's OnlyFans? You know, Cerno, I would agree with you. But you gotta remember who Shootin' Doji is. And I imagine she would probably have a lot of gore in her OnlyFans.
Don't blame Amaranth or any of these girls, by the way. First, they wouldn't be doing it if men didn't keep buying it. And second, Twitch is well aware of what is happening and they have
That's a fair complaint.
decided not to alter the TOS to stop it. Now, obviously this behavior is a spectrum, and I'm using Amaranth as an example, but she's not really the target here. The female streamers that I'm thinking of are lower down, the ones that aren't really taking risks. They kind of just play League of Legends and generally keep things above board. Maybe they have a discount code to Rogue Energy or something, maybe a cheeky cosplay here or there where they felt they looked cute, and their dominantly male community nods along and says, yes, very cute. You should do another one. Here's my question.
Very cute, do
If
another
Twitch
one.
turned around tomorrow
Do it
and
again.
said Twitch will only have video game streaming. Twitch will no longer be a platform you can earn money on. You can't embed links, and the moment you try to verbally or otherwise advertise anything other than the video game you're playing, you will be banned for 8 hours. How many streamers, male or female, would stream? I obviously don't know the answer, but I think it's going
Wait, what
to
was the
be
question?
as
I missed
anything
it.
other than the video game you're playing, you will be banned for 8 hours. Your other platform you can earn money on, you can't embed links, and the moment you try to verbally or otherwise advertise anything other than the video game you're playing, you will be banned for 8 hours. How many streamers, male or female, would stream? I obviously
That's a good question because I kind of need people to go to my YouTube in order to actually grow quite a bit.
don't know the answer, but I think it's going to be something similar to the ratio of male to female solo devs. I think most people would leave, and there would be mostly guys that are really passionate about sharing video games and a handful of females. but I generally think that the cut would be more severe for females. Let me know what
Yeah, it
your
would be
prediction
pretty
would be in the
severe.
comments. What I'm getting at here is that nowadays there are incentives to play video games beyond the personal enjoyment of playing video games. I suspect that of the 46% of female gamers, there is a percentage that are actually closer on the spectrum to businesswoman. Now, just to be clear, I'm not excluding that it's also true for males, but I suspect that number to be
Well, this
lower
game
as a
looks
percentage
sick.
due to findings in video game addiction studies
very
that
bloody.
conclude that males distinctly feel more rewarded when playing video games that involve territory control. I know that's very specific, but think it through. A lot of video games boil down to territory control or an allegory of it. So appropriating established IPs is gross, and maybe females don't exactly have the voice they think they do. The best way, the very best way to see the world of video games you want to see is to put your head down, make the game you want to see, and get in there with everyone else. This is how video games started, and this is how new ideas are being created, and these ideas shape the future of games.
See, here's the thing. A number of female developers female developers or something close to it, they try to make these games... Ow, my tits! A number of these female developers, they complete this initial step where they try to make these games that are targeted more towards people like them. But can anyone guess before I complete this, what is the mistake they do? They talk down and insult others. They insult others and then they wonder why no one buys their game. You can make a game that is targeted more towards females and enjoy that. It may be something you personally enjoy more, but you can't also mock and degrade others. Now, there are obviously going to be people that aren't interested in your game. Don't respond to them. Just let your game sell itself. Unless you're the Saints Row reboot and you do basically everything possible wrong.
Gaming. Dota was a Warcraft mod. Now it's an entire genre and the most successful esports genre on PC. PUBG was a mod that impacted all gaming and sports genre on PC.
Wait, what?
PUBG was a
mod? Really?
a mod that impacted all gaming and spawned the battle royale genre. What's interesting is that most new genres and new ways of engaging with video games are not top-down. The commercial gaming industry doesn't necessarily govern the direction of gaming because changing direction is expensive and risky. The commercial gaming industry's aim is to preserve the status quo and maximize profits within that framework. It's gamers, be that male or female, that set the direction when they invest in game creation. What has been true since the dawn of time and will be true until the sun dies is that great games will flourish. So make great games, and if they have sexualization, then do it your way and be the change. Like I mentioned before, solo development and modding is an open playing field. There are no gates. Gamers have never had so much freedom to engage in shaping the world of gaming. Sadly, the stupid option is the easiest option, and people are kind of like a mixture of cats and water, so they're going to take the easiest path and screech the entire way down. But the old adage is still true: anything that is really worth doing is hard work. All this to say, if you really want this change, the ball's in your court. There are already women out there working toward a more female inclusive future. I would love it if there were more games that were focused on the female perspective. I mean, I won't play them, but maybe my wife will. That would be nice. We're drawing to a close here, and it really has been a journey writing this. I mean, I always suspected that things like feminist frequency and co were bullshit, but it's crazy to me.
That's because it is! It is complete bullshit! And Anita Sarkeesian utterly destroyed the gaming industry in a way that we are still recovering from today. Except platforms like Steam have caused problems by deplatforming certain Japanese games. They do it less than Sony, at least. Makes me think of some directors/actors where they tell these people not to watch their movie and then blame them when the movie flops? Exactly. Egg-freaking-zactly. I've seen that happen so many times. Instead, you could just let your movie speak for itself. I mean, that's what people had to do 20, 30 plus years ago.
Me that our best study on the topic is...
Oh my gosh, could you imagine if when Star Wars came out for like episode 5 or 6 and the people who acted in the movies and such, and they had all this access to social media. Imagine all the mixed backlash they would get. It kind of makes you wonder if some movies were better because they weren't influenced by such a loud opinion. But at the same time, that loud opinion also got the change for the Sonic movie to not look like something out of a nightmare.
Largely ignored because it doesn't fit the narrative of our time. I feel equal parts vindicated and angry, and I think I'm justified in feeling this way too. For so many years, there has been this sexist movement that has infiltrated our general populace and demanded that I feel shame for something that has never had a negative bearing on my personal life as a married man.
Thank you.
Not claiming that there aren't damaged people that cannot interface with fiction, but most people aren't like that. I think people tend to try to focus on how they're different more than how they are the same. Men and women are not different species. We are far more the same than different. There are differences, and we've been explaining them, but anytime there is a behavior that is difficult to understand or accept, it's far easier to denounce the behavior than try to understand it. I see this as a modern plague in our thinking. I want to recognize that I understand that there is a deficiency in video games aimed toward female tastes, especially in the realm of sexualization, where it's financially beneficial to target males. Now, I know that I'm a male, so perhaps my train of thought sounds self-serving. Okay, so then why are so many female streamers self-selecting to sell lewd photos of themselves?
Damn! K.O. Oh, damn! That is one of the biggest roasts I have ever heard of. Someone clip that. That is going to be a YouTube short. Damn. Yeah, the biggest problem of the Star Wars sequels was that it wasn't created under a single vision, and it definitely shows.
Don't strain yourself. The reason is that they have reached the same conclusion I have, and there is nothing quite as beautiful as when people agree with you by demonstrating it with their actions. Note that OnlyFans is almost exclusively a female domain and voluntary. In case we didn't have enough evidence that it's not lucrative to target female tastes, another example just jumps out of the bushes. Once we remove the incentive of pay, job security, and lifestyle, and we remove gatekeeping, sexism, and racism, if we focus on those scenarios where passion and obsession are the primary driver for game creation, there isn't a lot of evidence to say that females as a cohort want to express female sexualization or even make video games at all. This stands in stark contrast to the accounts of game developers in the 80s that fiercely pursued game creation, risking their finances and relationships in hope of personal fulfillment. If there is a desire to see the video game sexualization landscape change, I can only surmise that more female devs need to take risks, at least to the same degree males have demonstrated. While I understand that female sexualization and objectification in video games makes females uncomfortable, I think this is fine. Reading female-targeted erotica or romances make my stomach churn with the misrepresentation of males, but I will never call for it to change because I can choose not to engage with it. Or I can say it this way, I don't see a problem with a piece of media or work of art making people uncomfortable if it has an audience that enjoy it, following that it is benign or has a positive influence on society. Sexualization in video games is going nowhere. Sexuality is so intrinsically part of the human experience that it can't be ignored entirely, and it shouldn't be. It should be embraced in a healthy way. without fake science. My hope moving forward is that
Without
game
fake
developers
science,
will work
thank
towards
you.
making more granular forms of self-censorship. Maybe you can toggle breast reduction on or off, or something like that, for example. I think more importantly, it would be great if there were more targeted options for females, rather than the current push for more androgynous designs that successfully offend no one, but also no one likes them outside of political
Yeah,
causes.
no
I
one
want to make
likes
this
that
really
shit.
clear. I want more games that would make me feel uncomfortable as a male,
Just get
but
more
you stay away from
customization.
Chun-Li's thighs, you hear me? I don't think it's reasonable to expect praise for appropriation. Anyways, I hope this video was enlightening or interesting. I know this is divisive, so please keep it civil in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.
Damn, that was...
PUBG was a mod.
That was an amazing video. This guy just earned a subscribe from me. This was an absolutely amazing video that showcases so much of the hypocrisy. I can't spell. Hypocrisy. Oh, whatever. So much of the hypocrisy of one argument, while also showing that it's not nearly as harmful as others like to think it is, and it is great to experience. Actually, no, that sounds dumb. As others think it is. You definitely earned a sub from me. Alright, Twitch, I'm not going anywhere, but I gotta say my end line for this being a YouTube video. If you want me to do more reactions like this, please comment down below, and make sure to go and check out Live Average Gamer. The link to his video will be down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!